Hello and welcome to Vegas Aces. I'm your host, Heather Ferris, and today we are joined with...
Hey, I'm Marc Shumsker. I'm a true poker dealer. You can find me on YouTube teaching people how to deal poker too.
Sweet, cool. Thank you so much for being on. Really do appreciate it.
Well, thank you. And I'm sporting my little mask here that will be available for sale soon, but not quite yet because of COVID, which is ironic, right? COVID slows down me from being able to sell the thing that helps for COVID.
Yeah.
Is what it is.
Look out, you're keeping me safe. I'm not keeping you safe.
Oh, that's right, huh? All right, I gotta settle the score then. I can't keep this on during this.
Before we get started, I just want to remind you to subscribe. Make sure you hit that notification bell so that way you're always notified of our latest videos and live streams. Also too, Mark, can you tell people, like, I know you said that you're having trouble right now with Facebook and everything, but I really like that mask. Where would I go and get one if I wanted one?
This is on Teespring at the moment, and I appreciate you asking that question. It's set up just enough for you to be able to find it if you look for a true poker dealer. But I'm waiting to promote this through YouTube because they have a partnership with YouTube. So as soon as they're able to get that back and running again, it's been on about a 3-month delay, then it'll be up. But
okay,
I like
cool.
it. I got myself a sample, and I appreciate you asking that.
Yeah, no problem. Now, True Poker Dealer, you've been around forever. How many years have you been around?
I started in February of 2012. It was one day before my oldest son was born is when I released the first video.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah,
And
it's interesting.
You help people learn how to deal poker, right?
I do, yeah. Poker is something that, I mean, I've dealt table games too and supervised table games as well, but that was a brief part of my career. Poker is what I focus on online, and I'll leave all the table game stuff to you.
How long were you a poker dealer? Did you enjoy it?
So I worked in the industry for 10 years. I was a poker dealer, switching between table games and dealing poker and supervising table games and poker for about 2.5 years. Then I went on to be a full-time floor in poker and a shift manager at times, and that was for about 7 more years. And then I did a short 4-month stint at one of the major poker rooms in South Florida at the Hard Rock in Hollywood for about 4 months before I went full-time entrepreneur.
Cool.
And it was 10 years total in the industry.
Sweet. Again, thank you so much for being here. And today you are going to tell viewers the top 5 tricks for how to deal a better Texas Hold'em game.
I've got some good ones. Yep.
Yay. Thank you. I'm looking forward to it. Now, shall we get started? You want to start off with number 1?
I'm happy to do it. And I've been really excited ever since I knew I was going to be on this with you. I've been excited about this because the number 1 tip, the first one that I'm going to share, is something that you'll love. The first tip that I think will make you a better poker dealer is to learn to deal table games first. So people don't realize, I did this myself, okay? It's fine to deal poker first, but it's better to deal table games first because the mechanics are cleaner. Like, learning all of the motions in poker can be lazy. It's not house is money, so the procedure is not as precise. But learning the mechanics of how to deal poker from table games first, it gives you a nice little edge where your brain is already super trained for the mechanic side. And when you go to poker, it makes it easier to get a dealing job as a poker dealer. It makes it easier. I mean, you can do it without it, but it makes it easier is the point.
Right. The more games you know, the more valuable you are.
Absolutely. And so maybe you don't know this, and I assume you do because of all your experience, but like, poker dealers are taught sometimes to thumb cut, and it's fine to them, but it's less efficient. And there's a bunch of habits like that, like the way that they interact with the bank. A poker dealer who's never been a table games dealer trying to go in the tray and keep things clean is a nightmare sometimes. And it's just a bunch of stuff like that, especially if they go just to poker dealer school and nothing else. That's part of why I try to like emphasize those types of skills in terms of poker, but ultimately they're table game skills at the end of the day.
Yeah, that makes total sense. You do not want a thumb cut. Thumb cutting is. Someone told me one time that if they see someone thumb cutting, it's a red flag that they're cheating. I don't know how. I never like really looked into it, but that's why you're not supposed to thumb cut on a normal game. So I completely agree with that. And the one thing that I want to add was I dealt poker for a very short time. Like my poker career was very short lived. I was not poker dealer material at all. So one thing that I learned though was being a blackjack dealer. Pitching the cards is completely different on a blackjack game than it is on a poker game, and I got my ass chewed out because I went on a poker game and I was dealing poker and I was pitching like I was pitching on a blackjack game. And oh my God, I pissed off so many people. And oh, they were not happy with me, especially when one of the cards flipped over. Forget it.
So that's totally true. I totally agree with that. When it comes to, I did learn to deal double deck and shoe first, and for double deck, obviously you have to pitch, and it is totally different. That is probably the one thing that you have to retrain yourself for poker, but all the other mechanics for table games are cleaner, in my opinion, personally. Yeah, that's a funny story. I feel bad for you thinking about that because that's such a setup too. It's such a setup.
I got such crap. Oh my God, I got such crap, and they did not like me. I'm like, I think I like blackjack better than poker.
That'll do it. Yeah, poker. I find that table games dealers that go to poker, they end up going to poker if they actually really enjoy the game of poker a lot, right?
Yeah.
Like if you really enjoy poker, it makes sense to go from table games to poker.
Yeah.
But that's it.
Yep. Okay. So do you want to add anything else to number one before we move on to number two?
Yeah, there is one piece there. So becoming a table games dealer first, another nice little piece of that is you create a different type of friend circle that you get to hold on to also. You know, poker dealers are poker dealers. Table games dealers are a little bit different. And you also get more of a feel for the casino. Like there's other little benefits there too. Just figured I'd throw it out there because I had the notes and, you know.
Awesome. Now, before we go on to number two, if you guys are watching, if you have any questions for Marc or myself, please put them in the comments. I see you guys are doing some comments in here. Thank you very much for the chat. Very fun. So if I see a question, I'll put it up on the screen and we will ask. And yeah, let's move on to number two. So what's number two?
So number two is, as a poker dealer, you want to train yourself to think in terms of the two fundamental rules of poker. Now, I do an entire video in a paid course that I have on YouTube for this. But ultimately what it means is there's two rules that if you think in terms of them, all of your decisions as a dealer, of which there are many, become a lot easier. So rule number one is cards speak, which basically means that at any given moment, the only thing that entitles a poker player, to win a hand are their cards. So they must be protected and they must be carefully used, is the way that I'll say it. And as a dealer, you want to think in terms of that rule when you're making your decisions at the table. The other one that goes along with it, all poker rules are pretty much built on these, by the way. The other one is one player per hand. And so if you ever see something that potentially could violate one player per hand, as a dealer, you need to use that instinct that you develop in order to speak up. And a lot of people don't think in terms of these rules right off the bat. And what happens is they get their training and they're in there and they're like making change for a $5 chip with five $1 chips. And, you know, they're going through the motions that they think dealing poker is. And it seems like Heather might be gone for a second. We'll see if she comes back. But anyway, they're going through the motions that they think that dealing poker is.
I'm here. I just put you up on the screen.
I'm new to this. Whatever. I do a different program. I love it. So, you know, thinking in terms of one player per hand can make a big difference. For example, if you're at the table and you have one player that seemingly is innocently showing somebody else their cards that's not in the hand, you might think to yourself, oh, that's not that big of a deal. But if you're thinking in terms of one player per hand, you realize that now the person who is like off the table, someone else, they might actually speak up. They might say something. They might do something that would ultimately affect the hand. And so as a dealer, that's where you decide to step in, even if you've never been trained that. So cards speak, one player per hand, learn the game in terms of those things, and it makes your life a lot easier when you have to make decisions for the little things that don't necessarily require a supervisor.
Very cool. Awesome. Okay, so we got number 1 and number 2 done. Let's go to the comments and see if you guys have any questions for Mark or myself, which we do. Now, Joey says, are tokes better on table games than in poker because of the amount of foot traffic or the like?
So we both have answers to that. I guess I'm going to go first here. Listen, there's a huge variety when it comes to both table games and poker in my experience. Now, specifically speaking about poker, you can do really well. On my channel, I sometimes talk about the actual numbers, but it's kind of frowned upon in the industry, so I'm not going to do it right here. But basically, some people in some rooms can do really well in poker. I know that craps dealers especially can do phenomenally well. There's a lot of competition. My personal opinion is poker is slightly more depending on where you are, though, but I might be totally wrong about that. They're both good at the worst.
It goes down to my favorite mantra. Every casino is different. So it really just depends on the casino. You can have dealers who work at, let's say, the Cosmopolitan in Las Vegas, and they're making $100,000 a year, and poker dealers working at, I don't know, let's say one of the station casinos making like 30, 40,000. You can also have dealers working at downtown, one of the downtown casinos making $20 a day in tokes. And you can have a poker dealer working at Mandalay Bay making $75,000 a year. So it really just depends on the casino.
Yeah, and you have way more experience in Vegas than I do. For me, I find it's a little bit regional too. Like, forget about poker and table games. They both go up in certain locations depending on the amount of people that are there and all that type of stuff. But they're also very different types of lives in a lot of ways. I think that table games is probably less of a toll on the body. Still a toll. I think poker can be a lot more, even though you're sitting, but I mean, it's not what you're asking. I'm just throwing that out there.
And another thing too with tokes is, again, it depends on the location, but there are some locations, like you don't have to be in Las Vegas to make good tokes. Like, it amazes me that there are some casinos in Louisiana or Maine or, Detroit where they're making $60,000, $70,000 a year, so you don't have to be in Las Vegas to make those numbers.
Yeah, poker in Florida, Massachusetts, Maryland, Texas now, Vegas in a lot of cases too, California, they can all hit that much, especially if you're full time. Yeah. But it also, I mean, each poker dealer is different. Like, you keep your own almost every single time, and there can be two dealers at the exact same property that have very different results based on a lot of factors.
Exactly. Yep. Personality being one of them. If one of them's a grump,
Absolutely.
They're definitely not going to make as much money. If you guys have any questions about tokes, please feel free to go to my website, vegas-aces.com. We moved our toke board. We had a world toke board up on resources page. We moved that to the articles page under tokes. So you could find that on our articles page under tokes for the world toke board. We have another question, and it is, have either of you dealt a bad beat jackpot hand?
I have dealt one time. Nowadays, there's more high hands in poker than bad beat jackpots, but for me, it was like 2007 or 2008 at my first casino that I worked at, and I think it was for about $10,000. It was aces full of jacks was beaten by quads. I think it was quad fours,
Oh
And
man.
it's like when that happens, everything stops because all the paperwork starts coming and all the reviews start coming in. But man, it was really cool. And I got tipped more in that hand than I've ever been tipped before in a poker hand because, you know, you deal out $10,000, people are appreciative.
Yeah, that's for sure. Very good point. Okay, so before we go on to number 3, I just want to remind you guys that you can, speaking of which, always tip your dealer. It's easy now with Super Chat. Super Chat is a way YouTube allows you to tip your dealer any amount you want. Go ahead, give it a try, or show your support by becoming a member of our Patreon page. We have several different levels and rewards for you to choose from. Any membership level counts, even $1, so please go join today. Okay, let's get into number 3. What is number 3?
Number 3, I appreciate you throwing it back. So number 3, to be a better poker dealer, is to prioritize properly. And what I mean by that is there's certain things as a dealer that are more important in poker than other things. Following the action is something that not every dealer realizes needs to be prioritized above everything else. And following the action is something that is easy to like get lazy about and not do. And what I really mean is whoever's turn it is, as a poker dealer, you want to have your eyes at least enough so you can tell exactly what's happening on their hands, chips, and cards at any given time when it's somebody's turn. If it's not their turn, then you can look around and focus on other things. But if it's somebody's turn, you need to have your eyes there so that if they do something questionable, you know for sure. If everybody else at the table thinks that they checked, you know for sure, because premature cards and mistakes where the action skips somebody is really a detriment to the game. And on top of that, if a supervisor comes to the table for something complicated, such as a floor call, if you don't know what actually happened, you're making it really hard for yourself, the players at the table, and the supervisor. So keeping your focus on the player whose turn it is and training yourself to do that first is super important. The only other thing that's up on that same level of importance would be making sure that the bets are correct, the dollars that go into the pot and always are correct, that each person has the correct cards, some things like that that are very fundamental. But follow the action. That's absolutely something that will make you a better dealer. And I get questions on how to do that all the time. And it takes effort, practice. Like you got to be able to follow the action while you're making change. You have to be able to do that while other stuff's going on. But
Yeah.
it's doable.
Cool. So let's do a quick question. And again, if you guys have any questions for Mark or myself, please feel free to ask. And then after we do the question, we'll go on to number 4. So the question is, what game requires the most brain power? Ultimate, Texas Hold'em, 3-card poker, Texas Hold'em. What do you think?
I got to go with regular poker room Texas Hold'em just because I have dealt Ultimate. I've dealt 3-card. I've never done it with a 6-card bonus. I think that's what it is, or the 5-card bonus. But Texas Hold'em, you're basically sometimes babysitting 9 players at once at the table who all have aggressive personalities. Remember, in a poker room where people are playing against each other, not against you, every single person there is comfortable with confrontation. That's part of what makes them feel like they can walk into that room. So there's a lot going on, and the game itself isn't too bad in some ways, but some of the rules are really tricky and complicated. Like knowing what happens if somebody bets 75 and then someone else puts out, without saying anything, a bet of 105. There's a lot of details that come into it that the procedures for Ultimate and 3-card are relatively straightforward in comparison to, and there's a lot of judgment that you actually have to use as a dealer in poker, whereas you don't have to do some of that in table games. So I would say Texas Hold'em is a bit harder.
Okay, cool. So for poker, for table games, I would have to say probably craps. Craps was the hardest. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
absolutely true.
That's so hard, yeah. But that's good that we have both of them, one for poker and one for table games. So no more questions, it looks like. By the way, thank you guys for stopping by, for saying hi, for chatting us up. Really do appreciate it. Let's go on to number 4. What is number 4?
Number 4. This is good for table games too, honestly. Learn how to train yourself while you're dealing. instead of relying on other people to train yourself, so all right, I've had two people that learned through True Poker Dealer recently that just went to the tables for their very first job, and both of these people came to me saying, like, my first couple days were really rough. Like, there's a lot of stuff that came up. I had no idea what I was supposed to do, and that's how it is, unfortunately, in a lot of cases. And there's so many little details that can come up, and at the end of the day, you're not going to know what to do. When you first start dealing, if you teach yourself to train one thing at a time per table, or sometimes two if you can handle it, by the time you've gone through 3 months of training yourself with one or two things at a time, you're going to be amazing. This stuff's going to be automatic to you. Your speed's going to be quicker than it would otherwise. And by teaching yourself to train yourself while you're dealing, you're improving your own ability to make tips. You're improving your own ability to be flexible as things change. If you ever change poker rooms, they're going to have a different set of rules to a degree, and you'll be able to accommodate that better. It's a much better practice to teach yourself to train yourself while you're dealing, and for table games, it's no different.
Awesome. Very cool. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask. Just a quick reminder, Vegas Aces is supported by viewers like you. Donations make it possible for us to bring you these videos for free. If you think that this video was worth more than $0, please donate the amount you feel it's worth by clicking the link in the description below. So next question is it best to train with friends and family?
I mean, if all of them are going through training with you, like if everyone's taking it seriously, absolutely. You want to make sure that you're training good habits, right? You want to make sure that you're finding out what you should actually know. So I like training with more people. I like the fact that a lot of schools train with multiple people, but you certainly don't want people telling you, I know for sure this is how it works, and this is what you should be doing, and then you train that for yourself, and now you have to spend 20 times as much effort untraining it, right? So as long as everyone's open-minded and able to learn the right stuff, absolutely, the more the merrier.
Awesome. And also too, that's how some dealers learn, and that's how they get in the industry is, they have friends or they have family that are in the industry, and they're like, hey, I could get you a job. I'll teach you a couple things. We'll get you in. So it's a normal thing.
Yeah, I've seen that be common.
Right. Do you have a set of cards and chips at home to practice with friends and family?
I have so many sets of chips at home. I imagine you do too, right?
Yeah, so many cards, so many chips.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I've got a lot of cards too. My 8-year-old just created a YouTube channel called Lil Chip Architect, L-I''L, Chip Architect, because he would sit around while Daddy was working and just build stuff out of the chips that I have. And he decided he wanted to learn how to go on YouTube, and he's 8, and he put up 4 videos recently just as a fun project this summer. I mean, it's a different life having all that stuff at home, right?
Well, I saw one of the videos. He did a good job. I'm pretty impressed. He did better than my first video on YouTube.
Well, I am trying to teach him everything, but I am not letting him just do whatever he wants. So I got to teach him that's what we're talking about. You got to teach him the right stuff, right? In order to make it engaging and all that. But he is doing his own final cut, and I'm doing a little bit of touch up. But yeah, exactly.
That is really cool. And then before we move on, if you guys would like any cards or any chips, please feel free to click the link in the description below. I have a link to cards on Amazon as well as chips on Amazon. So if you want some to practice with, you could find the link description below. Okay, so do you think an all-in button or call button is necessary for poker room equipment?
The word necessary is a little specific there. I'm going to say not necessary, but it's way better. The TDA, in their most recent meeting in 2019, them being the Tournament Directors Association, they are the minds of the top poker rooms. They get together every 2 years and discuss rules for high stakes tournaments, so everything's consistent and clean. They recently put out a recommended procedure to use those, because it does make everything clearer. That the last thing that you want in poker is for somebody to go all in, saying all in but not pushing their chips out, or pushing one stack when it's really more than that because they were doing it verbally, and then somebody else for whatever reason didn't realize that it was an all in and then called and it was a messy situation. So those buttons make everybody's life easier if they're used properly, which they're not that hard to use as dealers. I like them, and I do recommend them to any room that's in operation.
Awesome. Cool. Okay, I am looking forward to hearing what number 5 is, the last one in the list.
You got it. So the last tip I have is be human. There are so many people that are at the poker room because they want connection, and it's an automatic way to get human interaction. You know, there's people that come in that come to the poker room, and it is what it is. They lose their money every single day, right? Why are they there? They're there for something other than trying to win the money. They're there for connection, and you got to figure out who this applies to. But if you can just be human, and I have seen some amazing examples of dealers that know how to do this phenomenally well, your tips go through the roof. It's amazing to see what a difference just understanding how to just provide the thing that people are actually there for. Like what that does is phenomenal. So yep. That's what I say. And it took me, honestly, I was more of a robot for years in casinos. And it took me probably until my last year or so working in casinos to really figure that out. And when I did, it made people like stop getting on my case as well, which it was hard to get on my case because I knew what I was doing. But I mean, still, you get people that want to test you, especially in poker. But I've also seen it in roulette and craps. And yeah, it's just be human and figure out how to be a little vulnerable at the table. Don't be off-putting. Like, learn how to do that in practice, and don't be afraid to mess up. But certainly don't get yourself fired. You know what I mean? But
yeah, you also kind of have to be a bit of a therapist. You know, you have to listen to them and empathize and sympathize and all that. And I've found that a lot of times, if I have an angry player or someone who is just really mad at me, if I just listen to him, I'm like, hey, you want to, vent? They'll just go off and they'll vent, and you just listen and you don't talk. And dude, they're so happy after that.
Heather, I got to tell you, if I was playing at your table, I would feel super comfortable doing that too. You have that vibe, and it is exactly what I'm talking about. Poker's a little different too, not in a bad way. It's just, you can have a player that's just one player at your table playing just with you, and they might feel comfortable opening up like that. In poker, what happens is sometimes you get players that sit in the seats right next to the dealer, and they want to talk to you quietly, right? And you know what? If you kind of go with it and you have those little tiny connection moments with them that are little things to laugh about or whatever it is, it can make a huge difference for them. And that's the type of stuff I'm talking about too.
Yeah, no, that's an absolute great point. And you don't want to do the therapy thing on the poker table with multiple people. That would totally kill everything. That wouldn't be good.
I mean, you never know what the table type is at, but yeah.
Yeah, dude, they don't call them poker sharks for nothing, dude.
Exactly.
They would eat you alive.
They would. You're right.
Oh, thank you so much. I really do appreciate you coming here and giving us these 5 tricks for dealing a better Texas Hold'em game. And if people want more information, if they want to hear more from you, where can people find you again?
I appreciate that. I am True Poker Dealer channel. True Poker Dealer on YouTube is the easiest way to find me. I'm just right here on YouTube, True Poker Dealer. And that's my channel. You can also find me at truepokerdealer.com. Both of those work, but I really like the YouTube platform, so I really just focus in right on YouTube all the time. You can also find me on a new channel that I'm creating on YouTube called Live Poker Coaching. I work with a poker pro who's cashed for over $1 million in his career as a poker player in live tournaments. And he and I together simulate 2-5 no limit cash games where we are simulating 500 hands consecutively. And we play the hand and then we talk through every single decision, where that basically means he's the expert on playing, so he talks through all the decisions. And it's pretty fascinating, 1 hand per video, and we're just starting that up. There's 3 samples out there now. So you can find me either of those two places. But True Poker Dealer is me. That's what I've been known for years. You can actually learn how to deal poker from start to finish on my YouTube channel, and I'm actually really proud of that. It's a lot of work, as Heather knows. Creating all those videos is crazy, and I do want to shout out Heather too. You know, some of the tips that you've given me over the years in order to make my channel better have been phenomenal. I super appreciate that. It's been great being friendly with you for all this time.
I completely agree. I'm lucky that we're friends and we've known each other for so long, and we've sort of like gone through this whole YouTube thing together. Like, so what do you use for this? So what do you do for that? You know? Thank you so much.
Exactly.
And got a really quick question before we get going. Thank you very much for the super chat, Steph. Do appreciate that. Steph, now it'd be good if I didn't butcher the name of someone who just gave me a tip. Steph says, any tips for a beginner who is just starting to deal 3-card or ultimate?
Ooh, since that's your neck of the woods, do you want to take it? Or, I mean, I can try. I've dealt it 10 years ago.
I'll do 3-card poker if you do Texas Hold'em. Okay, yep. Cool. So basically 3-card poker, super easy, super fun. I think the hardest thing about 3-card poker is you got to remember that the straight and the flush switch. So on a normal poker game, a straight beats a flush. And then on a 3-card poker game, it's the opposite. Flush beats a straight. Am I right on that, Mark? I might not be right on that.
In 3-card, a straight beats a flush, as you know, and in regular poker, a flush beats a straight. Correct. Right.
I know that that's a thing because I remember getting written up for screwing that up. So that's how I remember.
That blew my mind the first time I saw it. I was like, what? But then I did the math and I was like, okay.
Yeah, then it makes sense. Right. Mm-hmm. And then after that, with 3-card poker, just remember that if you don't qualify, the play always wins and the ante always pushes. So
that is good advice too. Man, it brings me back. I used to think of 3-card poker as a vacation while I was like at work. It was a lot less complicated than some of the other stuff. So for Ultimate Texas Hold'em, I find that dealers have the most trouble with not the payouts, but with the hands themselves and being able to see them. Now, as a poker dealer, for me, that's become super easy. One thing that you can do is on my channel, I do teach an Omaha trick for how to read Omaha hands on your own. Now, Omaha is way more complicated than Texas Hold'em. So if you were to go find the Omaha video that I have and practice reading hands over and over and over again, that would help you because it would get you to see this stuff without too much effort. But I mean, at the end of the day, practicing reading hands that are out there on the board is the thing that you need to be able to do in Texas Hold'em. And Ultimate Texas Hold'em, it's one of those things where you can kind of sneak by if you aren't perfect with the hands, but then I've seen it over and over again. You're going to miss something on the table. Like dealers at Ultimate Texas Hold'em, I used to floor behind dealers at that game, and it's like if they weren't also poker dealers, they would miss stuff. So you got to practice reading hands, and if you want to like go to the big leagues right away, Omaha is a good place to do that because each player has 4 cards and there's still 5 cards on the board, and you're like reading what their best hand is. You're going to master it if you spend, I would say you could probably master it if you spend like 4 hours on it.
Nice. And you just practice at home with a deck of cards? And
yeah, the video that I did shows you deal out a board, and then using the same deck, you just keep dealing out 4-card hands and reading them. And you do that over and over and over again. And, you know, by the end of it, you've got so many hands under your belt. It's kind of crazy. Yeah.
Nice. But you're doing the muscle memory, and it's
Exactly.
the seeing part of it, seeing and recognizing part of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Okay, so I think this might be our last question. Any dealer incentive programs that have been successful at properties that you've worked at?
Interesting.
I got one real quick if you don't have one.
Yeah, go ahead. I want to hear it.
So I worked at Rio, which used to be owned by Harrah's. And back in the day when Harrah's was actually Harrah's and not owned by Caesars. Harrah's had this they were fantastic. They trained you really well. They trained you a lot. They had a lot of fantastic incentives. They were so amazing to work for. And one of the incentives that they had was every time you get a customer rating card that was a good rating, you would get a certain amount of money. So if you got like 10 good customer rating cards, you'd be at the table, you'd be working like really, customer service and talking and blah, blah, blah. And hey, before you go, could you fill out this customer rating report? And you would try to rack them up. And the more you racked up, the more money you got. So every 2 weeks you would get a bonus check, and everyone got a bonus check. And depending on how many customer review rating cards you had, depended on how big the bonus check was. So it wasn't a small amount either. It wasn't like you got a bonus check for $30. I mean, you would get a bonus check for like $100, $200, $300. Some people got a $500 check, depending on how good you were. It was a really very good incentive program. So.
That's amazing. I've never worked at a place that did anything quite to that extent. I've only been somewhere where if you got enough people to sign up for players cards, you would get different things, but it was more in the range of like 50 to 100. I have worked at a lot of casinos that did a lot of random things, and I actually don't think that random giveaways are good incentives in general.
And the casinos can lose a lot of money with that too.
Yeah, the thing I'll say for poker though is the rooms kind of approach it differently. The rooms will give away money as high hands, every 30 minutes, $500. They do that, at a couple of the rooms down in Florida. And when a dealer deals one of those, they get extra money on their shift every single time. And so, because if you deal $500 winning hand on top of the pot in the hand of poker, when the player gets paid for the high hand, they end up getting that type of incentive. I can tell you it's not intentionally an incentive program for dealers, but it does a good job.
Cool. That's really cool.
It's interesting.
Yeah, a lot of casinos have a lot of different incentive programs, and it's interesting to see what each one does. Cool. Okay, so it looks like that's all of the questions. Marc, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. Really do appreciate it. I hope we can have you back on.
2 thumbs up.
Awesome. Okay, and thank you guys so much for watching, and we hope to see you on our next live stream, which will be Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.
Vegas Aces!